anything we talk about, like I just described these linguistic nuances, at the end of the day, we don't ascribe anything to Allah. Why don't you understand about that?
I didn't ascribe anything. I'm just reading your Quran.
He's so exalted that we just leave him in a category by himself. We don't say he has a wife.
Good. Okay, I'm going to agree with you. All right, now, when you say he's exalted, do you believe he's above the throne or is he on the throne? Is he on the arsh or is he above the arsh? Is he on the kursi or above the kursi? Is he on it or above it? Well, I don't know what you believe.
Okay, so this is
no, because you said he's exalted.
Which verse are you talking about now?
There's chapter 7 of the Quran, verse 54.
In ancient Christian theology, there is a theological approach called the negation approach, or the apophatic approach, in discussing the existence of God. Everything that exists within creation, when applied to God, must be prefixed with the word not. This is what is known as theology of negation. Thus, God is not yellow, not white, not big, not small, not old, not young, and so on. God is not left, not right, not above, not below. He is not bound by space and time. God is neither male nor female, nor is he a mix of both, and he is not a being confined by gender. Essentially, anything that belongs to the nature of creation cannot be applied to the nature of God. The attributes of God's essence cannot be described in positive language, because from eternity past to eternity future, God's essence remains the same and will always be a mystery to mankind. Since God, in his essence, is mysterious, ancient Christian doctrine affirms that the proper way to approach the nature and essence of God, who is unfathomable and incomprehensible, is through the via negativa, or apophatic approach, which is the theology of negation.
Chapter 7, verse 54.
Chapter 7, verse 54.
Yeah, because I have a question about that. Where Allah is, you said, because he said
the arsh it's a metaphorical.
Okay, well, some think it's actual throne, but I just want to know: do you think he's on it, above it? What does that mean?
No, because I heard many scholars say that there's no such he's not sitting. There's no he's sitting on a no, that's not the case.
To some scholars that you follow, that maybe Ash'ari and Maturidi.
No, I think the consensus amongst the mainstream Muslim scholars are saying.
I can quote to you the Salafi, the ones who follow the Salaf Salih. They say he's above the throne in a manner suiting his majesty, and we don't try to.
When you say the throne, it's like metaphorical as the earth is it's like he's above the earth. He's above everything in the world. He created it. It doesn't mean that there's an actual chair that he's sitting in, as you Christians.
All right, well, I have a problem though.
CP, you don't know how many times I've heard CP come to this, and it's just ridiculous.
Jihad, my friend. If you're telling me it's a metaphor, then in chapter 69, verse 17, it says 8 angels.
But you just said chapter 7, so I was
hold on,
to
dude.
the verse.
Hold on. You just said something. Be patient, dude. Just a little patience. You said the throne is a metaphor. In 69:17 of the Quran, it says 8 will carry the throne. 8 will be carrying the throne. 8 angels. What are they carrying if it's a metaphor? 69 verse 17 of the Quran. 69
so are you
verse
redirecting me to another verse now?
Because you just said, let me repeat, man, listen to yourself. You said
I heard what you just said, so I'm asking you, are you redirecting me?
Yeah, because I want to know, how is it a metaphor? What are the 8 angels carrying? A metaphor? 69:17. Read it.
I'll look.
So he's carrying a metaphor. The 8 angels are carrying a metaphor. They're not actually carrying a throne.
Well, we're going to read the tafsir on that one too.
Okay, it's up to you, dude. If you want to go to tafsir, it's up to you. But just read for me 69:17. So the Quran itself is not plain. You got to go to tafsir. Okay, 69:17. But read it for me. Just read what it says. How many carry the metaphorical throne? The throne that's not real. It's a metaphor. How many are carrying it? That metaphor.
Surah Taha 25 states, "The most merciful Ar-Rahman rose over the throne." The key term in this verse is istawa, which in classical Arabic fundamentally means to rise, settle, or establish firmly. This is not a random interpretation, but is supported by linguistic studies found in Lisan al-Arab, one of the most authoritative classical Arabic dictionaries. In this dictionary, istawa is explained as an action of elevating and firmly establishing oneself in a place. If we examine the use of istawa in various other Quranic verses, the literal meaning remains consistent. For example, in Surah Az-Zukhruf 43:13, this word is used to describe a person sitting firmly on a riding animal. Likewise, in Surah Al-Baqarah 2:29, the term istawa is employed when Allah is said to have turned towards the heavens, which clearly indicates a real action rather than mere symbolism. If in all other cases this word carries a literal meaning, why should it be interpreted metaphorically in Surah Taha 25? Within Islamic tradition, there is a division between the Salaf and modern Muslim theologians. The Salaf, including Ibn Kathir, Ibn Taymiyyah, and Ahmad ibn Hanbal, assert that Allah is truly above the throne in a literal sense, though they refrain from explaining how, bila kaif. They hold the principle that the Arabic language should not be reinterpreted unless there is clear evidence justifying a metaphorical reading.
And the angels will be on its sides, and 8 angels will that day bear the throne of your Lord above them. So they're going to carry the throne above them.
Eight angels?
That's,
8 of them?
yeah, do you want me to add?
that's
I'm just going with the verse. I can't add to the verse.
Yeah.
Okay,
so are we going to the tafsir?
You wanted to. I'm asking if the arsh is not an actual throne, what are they carrying?
It's not clear. I mean, it's as I said, the arsh is metaphorical. So we need to.
So they're carrying a metaphorical throne. Okay.
We need further clarification at the end of the day. You know, I mean, we need tafsir.
All right. Okay. Right? Now here's my question for you then. Okay, since you don't, you do believe Allah is above His creation then? Above the 7 heavens, above
Allah's
creation?
above His creation, but He's not sitting in a chair.
Okay, forget sitting on the chair.
Okay.
All right, He's not. So let's go with that. He's not sitting on the chair, but you do believe He's above His creation. Okay, can you read for me Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 55? And when you read 355, notice what Allah says to Isa. God says to Jesus in your Quran. Yusuf Ali. Behold, God said, O Jesus, I will take thee and raise thee to myself. I will raise thee to myself. That's the part I wanted to focus on. And raise thee
when Allah said, oh Jesus, indeed, I will take you and raise you to myself and purify you.
Okay, myself, right? So Allah's going to take Jesus to who? Allah's taking Jesus to who?
He picked him up.
Yeah, but it says to myself. Who's myself?
Allah took him to heaven.
Did it say heaven or to myself? I'm reading the verse in front of my eyes. Allah, I will take you to myself. This is also in Surah An-Nisa. So go to Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4 of the Quran, verse 158. Nay, but Allah took him unto himself. Allah is ever mighty wise. So Allah took him to himself. To himself.
You said verse 2, 158?
No, chapter 4, verse 158. Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4, verse 158. So I just read it. Nay, Allah took him to himself. Allah took Jesus to himself. And that's what 355 said. Yeah. I will take thee to myself, right?
Rather, Allah raised him to himself.
You got it, right?
Allah.
Okay. So,
Aziz and Hakim.
Okay, now your Quran just said, and I want you to hear carefully, your Quran just said in 2 places, Allah took Jesus to himself. I will take you to myself, took him to himself. But you just said Allah is above the creation. So now you just have to admit Jesus is with Allah above the creation because he's with Allah. Why is Jesus above the creation?
Because Allah took him up there.
So a creature is above creation. A creature is above creation? A creature is above creation?
Allahu A'lam. Allah is the creator. Jesus was sent.
No, that's not what I'm asking. If he's a creature, how can a creature be above creation? To say he's above creation means he's separate from creation. That doesn't work.
He's in heaven.
Didn't say heaven, unless Allah's in heaven.
Allah does as he wills.
All right, so Allah will to take a creature above creation to be with him, making him his partner. But if you're a creature, you can't be above creation. To be a creature means you're part of creation. If you're above creation, that means you're separate from creation. So either Jesus is separate from creation or he's part of creation. If he's part of creation, he can't be above creation with Allah. Make up your mind.
When a Muslim denies the statement that Isa, Jesus, was raised to the side of Allah, they are actually rejecting their own Quranic verse. Surah An-Nisa 4:158 clearly states, but rather Allah raised him, Isa, to himself. In this verse, the phrase ilayh means to himself, not merely to paradise, but to the very side or presence of Allah. If a Muslim argues that Isa was only raised to heaven and not to the presence of Allah, they must explain why the Quran explicitly uses the word ilayh in this context. In many other Quranic verses, ilayh is used to indicate something that truly goes to Allah, not just to an ordinary place. One example is Surah Al-Mulk 67:16, which states, "Do you feel secure that he who is above the heaven?" The phrase fi as-sama, in the heaven, is often interpreted by early scholars, Salaf, as referring to the presence of Allah above. Another example is Surah Al-Fatir 35:10, which states, "To him ascends good speech." This verse affirms that words ascend to Allah, not just to heaven as a mere location. Thus, there is no logical or linguistic basis to deny that Isa was truly raised to the presence of Allah. In the commentaries of Ibn Kathir, At-Tabari, and Al-Qurtubi, all of them agree that Isa, Jesus, was raised to the side of Allah, not merely to heaven as an ordinary place. Even Ibn Abbas, who is known as Turjuman al-Qur'an, the best interpreter of the Qur'an, also affirmed that Isa was raised to the side of Allah and will descend again at the end of times. If a modern Muslim rejects this understanding, they are actually deviating from the interpretations of their own classical scholars and creating a new interpretation that has no foundation in traditional Islam. A Muslim who claims that Isa was only raised to heaven and not to the side of Allah is actually denying the literal meaning of their own Qur'an. The word ilayh in Surah An-Nisa 4:158 clearly indicates that Isa was raised to Allah, not just to heaven as an ordinary place. If ilayh only means heaven, then Muslims would also have to interpret that prayers, words, and everything that ascends to Allah in other verses only reach heaven and not Allah directly. Is a Muslim willing to say that their prayers only ascend to heaven and not to Allah? If not, then they must acknowledge that Isa was truly raised to the side of Allah, as stated in their own Quranic text.